Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me here today, and I apologise now if I suddenly disappear. So I'm from Fernhill farm, and we have a livestock farm on top of the Mendip Hills, which is basically on top of Cheddar Gorge. So it's very beautiful, but we are sat in a cloud today. And sometimes our Wi-Fi is not the best when you live in such beautiful areas. So I'm going to set up some screen sharing right now, so I can just give you a quick whiz through what happens at Fernhill Farm. And we'll do some questions and answers later. So I'd love to get to know some of you on here as well. Thanks. So we are at Fernhill Farm, as I say. It's a very old farm. We've been here for 23 years. My partner found it as a very derelict farm, grade 2 listed house, curtilage of buildings. And so we kind of almost had a clean slate on how we wanted to redevelop this farm. Myself and Andrew are predominantly livestock farmers. We've both got education in livestock, husbandry, animal science. Andy is a sheep shearer. He was running a shearing gang around the southwest for about 25 years, has trained hundreds of people how to shear, and has represented England for sheep shearing since 1996, I think, and still doing so now. So we've got a long history with sheep, both of us. We also have a small herd of Aberdeen Angus cattle that are homebred, and that's partly because they are so good at regenerating landscapes when you have what we call a flood, which is a herd and a flock that roam together. So we've always maintained that nature knows best. And what we decided to do was sort of set up the buildings as eco venues. So we put all these things here that you can see on this slide. This tends to be what our lives look like with the livestock. So we do a lot of hill grazing, that's conservation grazing. The ewes there are pure Shetlands. So they became the base of our commercial flock. We've got the Aberdeen Angus grazing all year round, outside on natural pastures. You can see down in the bottom there, we pre-lamb shear our ewes so that we take the wool off before they have their lambs in April. This is for many benefits because they're actually blade shorn, so you can see they've still got a really nice cover of them when they lamb in April. It's a better quality wool. It means they can lamb outside, and we don't really touch the lambs very much, and until we need to be taking them onto different sites. So it's a lot less stressful. And I've always had a passion for pigs. I've done a lot of work with pigs in the past, and so this is what my babies look like in the woods. This is the building setup. So derelict buildings that we have converted. We went straight for renewables from day one. So solar electricity as much as we can on agricultural sheds. We have got rainwater harvesting, which flushes toilets and goes onto an on-site water purification system, which is this big pond here, look. It's a huge ecosystem in its own right, and it's actually a British crayfish conservation site right now. So we can do some research and work out what's going wrong with crayfish, even on top of the Mendips. It's a good mind spin. We design our own buildings and our own sort of glamping pods, which is making use of farm design. So you can see it is literally a pig ark on a trailer with our own timbers and lots of wool insulation in the middle. And the big loft apartment here is actually accommodation inside an agricultural shed, a mezzanine floor. So they're all run as eco venues, all powered by or heated, if you like, by logs and by solar. And this is what our weekends tend to look like here. We've specialised in the fire being the secret ingredients to everyone's really fun weekends here. We get a lot of weddings and festivals and parties who come to the Mendips, and they kind of lose themselves, if you like, on a working livestock farm and have a really nice weekend. Behind that is food all the way. So we grow beef, lamb and pork. We do have an on-site sort of kitchen garden, but it's very difficult to grow in volume. So that tends to be for us as a family. And we link in with lots of other catering companies that can come and help us serve our meats, along with, you know, some wonderful side dishes. So collaboration is key. And as well as realizing that on a farm, we're very blessed to have many, many resources. So as well as sort of festivals and all the party weekends, myself and Andrew are both sort of basic teachers, if you like. So Andy teaches a lot of the sheep husbandry and the sheep shearing skills. I've tended to work on forest school sessions and teaching people about adding value to wool. But making time for wool has always been one of the most difficult things, because when you consider we've got 2 teenagers, we have livestock, and we sort of welcome guests at weekends, there's not a lot of time left. So the management of that is always going to be our sort of the dilemma of livestock farming. These are the breeds that we've got access to here. So they're quite specialised and quite colourful, thanks to the fact that, you know, colour, natural colour is within all sheep breeds, and we actually really, really love to welcome that. So as we moved through the years, it was about 2009, and I was doing some wool discovery day on the farm, where we welcomed a lot of adults with support needs that could come to the farm and really enjoy being out in the countryside. Green space, as we know, is such a healer. And so we were doing a workshop with these lovely sort of teenagers that were out of mainstream education for one reason or another, and talking to this girl, and she had absolutely no idea what sheep were on the planet for and what they could give us. And that, you know, we've actually had a very, very symbiotic relationship with sheep ever since we domesticated them. And that's, you know, the reason why we're able to live in these climates is because of, you know, the wonder of the sheep. So that got me thinking. And I was, at that point, I was also trying to add value to our own fleeces. And I actually felt quite, you know, I was really in despair, because I couldn't find anybody who was really willing to help me. No one could sort of say, okay, this is how you can do on-farm sorting and grading. This is where you can send it to be spun. Then they send it to the mills and it comes back as blankets. And so it was really, really disjointed. And I think I was just sort of, you know, possibly, you know, sort of mentioning this to my partner, Andy, and he said, go and tell Nuffield Farming, because they offer travel bursaries as a scholarship. And so the little Red Bull in the corner is the Nuffield, and that's where wool actually became my passport. And so, yeah, I have been to 10 different countries, and, you know, I've been right to the nitty-gritty of looking at sheep genetics, because that's the very start of adding value to wool, in our opinion. If you don't get the sheep genetics connected to your own topography and your own climate, then you have welfare issues, and it's just going to create more issues than what it's worth. So there's many, many different breeds to choose from. And, you know, humans have taken the genetics of all species in so many different directions that, you know, careful selection of a sheep that you actually really like the look of as well. And for us, we chose dual purpose, easy management, and a good low micron but heavy fleece for spinning. So these sheep that you can see in this picture are pure Icelandic sheep. And this is a really traditional system where these 25,000 sheep that you're looking at in the distance here, and they've brought them down from the mountains in September, and they're dividing them up to their owners. Very different model to what you would see in this country. But you can see here that even in Iceland, those sheep have 40 different markings, the same as you would find in a Shetland breed, but humans always favour white wool because of the potential to add natural dyes and synthetic dyes, because we really like colour. And all of these things are what you learn when you put time into, rediscovering a natural fibre and how it's grown and where it's grown and why it's grown. So at the end of my scholarship, I created a sister company to Fernhill Farm that was called Fernhill Fleece and Fibre. I started an online shop. I've created our own website, and it's kind of its own business in its own right these days, which is purely about being able to supply a product that people are looking for. Traceability, transparency to us, and all the way through a UK processing chain. It's low micron because of the genetics that we've selected, over the last sort of 20 years. It's naturally coloured, so you can see here this picture. These are ewe lambs that have had their single lamb out in the lush grass. They've not been indoors at all, and you can see about 18% of our flock is naturally coloured. And for us, that's a really important selling aspect, because from those two colours that you can see, black and white, I think I've got about 4 different blended greys, so that I can repeat that yarn colour all the way through. So the next time somebody who commissions yarns from Fernhill Fleece and Fibre, I've got exactly the same tone, which when you're working with fashion companies and design students, that's such an important feature. And it's great fun, blending colours is a really lovely thing to experiment with a natural fibre. So this is quite wordy, but I'm very happy people wanted to have a copy of this slideshow that they can, go into more depth later on. So it basically just shows that we are really holistic in our thinking, and what we consider is all aspects of adding value from the sheep. So that's meat as well as the fibre, but also how much land they can regenerate at the same time just by living naturally outside as they would like to do. So it's a kind of like a holistic context of how we like to operate with all our businesses here. And it's that transparency, it's the traceability, it's the time that we've put into being able to guarantee that what we're selling is a quality product. So if anyone's got any questions, we can come back to that later. As mentioned in the intro, Customary and Andrew both do quite a lot of education. When I sort of finished my scholarship, I was kind of left, gosh, what am I going to do with all this newfound information? And we go to agricultural shows and we go to specialist wool shows. And what I was aware of when talking to customers and clients and visitors at the farm is that wool is almost a forgotten fibre. They might, if you ask people what's made out of wool, they would probably just say hats and gloves and jumpers. They only see it as a wardrobe and almost an accessory. So we wanted to sort of highlight all the different areas that wool can be found. And this was done sort of back in 2010. So there's a lot more happening now with wool research, as I'm sure you're all aware of. But these are the wow boards, and they're really good at taking to different places and stopping people and making them think, oh, actually, yeah, wool is natural, it's biodegradable, it can be processed without any chemical intervention, which in comparison to all this greenwashing that's really becoming big publicity these days, bamboo is a classic example of how they've been greenwashing us for years. Bamboo is a stick, it's a tree. you know, it's a really heavy, hard duty plant material. And to turn that into a yarn, years ago, it would have been done by natural microbes in a fermentation process. These days, that is not the case. You know, there's an awful lot of chemical intervention that can happen with a natural fibre. And there's an awful lot of things that you can do wrong with wool fibres, because wool gets coated in lots of synthetic dyes, plastic coating, you know, resin, and all sorts of other products. So it's really important that going forward, we maintain the fact that wool can be processed without chemical intervention, without the need for anything synthetic, and it can be grown on regenerative landscapes. And so this is what led us to working with Bristol Textile Quarter and the Bristol Weaving Mill, and becoming the fibre behind the Bristol Cloth Project. So this has been going around for a while. It's been amazing for me, because when I first started talking to wool, I'd go to meetings and I was perhaps 20 years younger than anybody else in the room. Now I'm almost, you know, one of the oldest when I have conversations, because there's a delightful array of very young, funky textile designers, recent graduates, that are really putting wool at the forefront of everything that they want to do, and they want it traceable, and they want it to be from a regenerative source. So the future is really, really exciting. So the Bristol cloth, just as a quick roundup, it's a collaboration between us as a wool grower, and within 17 miles it can be woven in Bristol, and then the Bristol cloth sort of links the Bristol Textile Quarter with textile students that can cut it and design it and make it into finished products. So it's the start of a fibre shed model years ago, and it's where we're sort of heading in the future with our holistic context. So in 2017, after I'd been to Patagonia with Nuffield, came across what's called holistic management and regenerative management of land. And that included a business model that myself and Andrew were trying to get to, which was multi-purpose flocks, that half of the money that you turn over from your sheep flocks is relating to meat, half of it is relating to wool. And as they go, they are regenerating the landscape behind them. So in Patagonia, I was on a green, lush farm that was surrounded by desert. That's quite a striking observation to come away with. And so the first thing I did when I came back to England was, you know, I phoned up the UK hub, because holistic management, we trained through 3LM, which is the UK hub for Sabre Institute. So if you've not heard Alan Savory talk, you know, look up for his TED talk, because he's quite inspirational in what he's proving. So 2 years down the line, we have done the training, and we are now certified as a regenerative farm. So there's a lot more information that you can find out on social media and on websites, but this is the verification that we have for Fernhill Farm. And you can see here that we've got 2020 at the bottom, 2021 at the top, and all these coloured bar charts are all increasing. So the blue is the water cycle, the brown is the mineral cycle, the green is the community dynamics, which is basically your flora and fauna, and the E is the energy, the yellow is the energy flow. That is the amount of photosynthesis that's happening on our land. And all of them are sort of increasing or shifting around as we redesign what we're doing. And this helps us prove that the passage of the flood, the cattle and the sheep together are regenerating the landscape. So we're very pleased that, you know, we're sort of at the forefront of this information. And so what's also really quite special about holistic management is it's a decision-making framework, because if you come back to all our businesses or sort of enterprises, if you like, that we run at Fernhill Farm, it can be quite a busy day. And having something that helps you make decisions and it helps you decide based on the environmental, the economic, the social, maybe even the political impact of your everyday decisions, it somehow keeps life quite simple, because if you don't believe in it, don't do it. Or if you believe in something, you find somebody that you want to follow, you want to invest in, you want to promote, then it becomes really obvious. So yeah, holistic management has been a real asset to us. And here you can see in the corner, we've got the Southwest England fibre shed, which was started in 2019. So it's had a little bit of a rocky start because the members haven't actually really managed to meet up properly, because we then went straight into lockdown and haven't really managed to come out of it as such. I don't know how you feel about that. But it's great. It's a members organisation for local businesses, and it starts from a wool grower right through to a processor, right through to textile designers, companies that are making finished products, and it's all within a regional area. So I believe there is a Welsh fibre shed being set up at the moment. Maybe you guys know more about it than myself. If not, definitely follow that up, because it is such an honour to work with people who are on the same journey as yourself. And that's a really special way to connect with people who also are interested in regenerative style living, really. So we came across the Rampisham Hill Farmer Mill. So these are sheep farmers. They're actually friends of ours, and they've invested in a mini mill which has just opened this year. They got the machinery last year, and as of January this year, they are accepting fees. So if anybody is looking at setting up a mini mill again in Wales, I know they've come and gone, in your regions, then, here's another sort of more up to date, bringing it up into 2022, if you like. So they are spinning and making use of the waste wool, and they're also looking for their own product range as well, so that they can sort of subdivide their income through commissions, but also selling finished products. So I think it's going to be a very exciting model to watch. And as a small family, sheep farmers, their heart is definitely in the right place when it comes to designing, a mini mill again that's functional. Bringing it forward to, again, a sort of 21st century, and where we've moved from with our Wonder of Wool display boards is, I met Andy in Brussels when I was at the International Wool Textile Organisations. It was a sort of brainstorming meeting, and this just goes to show that wool is the fibre of the future, and these guys, NASA, had been treating all sorts of products, trying to make something that astronauts could be comfortable in, and then sort of 30 years later, I don't know how many billions of dollars were wasted, they suddenly realised that everything that they were looking for was wool, and we'd always been wearing it ever since we first domesticated them. And there's lots of research into the building industry, the medical industry, transport industry. And I was just saying to Ellen before, in New Zealand, they're way ahead of us in creating new products, and they're researching surfboards and sort of little sort of hovercraft type, sort of, I don't know, little boats that are made from wool. So I don't know, as I say, I don't know the chemical intervention that has to happen along that way. Maybe it's not so environmentally sound to be thinking like that, but I think it's really good to flag up where people are going with wool research. This is also in New Zealand as well. So, this ocean wool, which is kind of edible bubble wrap. So as we've all seen the horrific photos of, turtles eating plastic, and the amount of unbiodegradable rubbish that ends up in a whale. So we must remember that wool is actually a keratin, and moths eat it, as we know. We don't like them for it, but it is an edible protein. And so if it goes back into the oceans, then it's a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. And I think they're also making pet food using the keratin parts of the wool to create sort of extra protein. So as the world goes, what are we going to, how are we going to feed everybody? Then, we need to be thinking that wool is a natural protein, and it is abundant on every continent, right by the side of man, because that's how we survive, is by having the sheep by our side. So lots of amazing thoughts for the future there. And just to finish off, where we're at now, so fast forwarding, sort of 20 years at Fernhill farm, and we've been doing an open day here since about 2016, I think. We do blade shearing. You can see Dave there with his blades and his children watching, and we've had 5-year-old shearing and 80-year-old shearing side by side on the boards, and it's it's a free day. People turn up. We've got nothing to hide about our wool harvesting industry. We showcase how we do the wool handling, so how we keep the boards exceptionally clean. This is a 4-stand purpose-built shearing shed that you can see in the background there. So keeping the wool clean at shearing is absolutely paramount if we're going to start adding value to it. We've got wool grading tables, and so we throw all the fleeces so that we can pull off the bits that we don't want, bits of felted areas, what we call the breech wool, belly wool, spray markers, all of those bits that we get rejected if you're creating a batch of yarn. And, we love to show people that. It's a really interesting aspect of adding value to wool. And in my opinion, as a farmer, that is the only way you're going to make money out of wool, is if you invest the time and the skill and you add value at shearing. Because once you've put it all into a big 50-kilo wool bag, it's pretty hard and very, very time consuming to then go back through all those fleeces and pull out the bits that you want. So that's what we've been doing here for 10 years, I suppose now. And new this year, which we're very excited about, is a new event called Fibre Quest, and we're joining up with Stitch Fest, who actually runs a yarn show down in Devon. But we're sort of showcasing it here so people can come and see the regenerative farm that the wool is grown on. They can see the blade shearing that's high welfare. They can see the wool handling. They can see how we add value to it, and hopefully we're starting to create this paradigm shift that, as humans on this planet, we've only got one way to go, and we have to become cleaner and more ethical and understand what is available locally. So, and then this is what I always love to say, this is the reality of, our chaos is, we've got many enterprises and we welcome lots of people here, and it's that's my daily balance. So I hope that was okay. I'll stop sharing my screen now, but if anybody wants me to go over any other points, I'm very happy to throw the floor to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With the clothing that you've done with the Bristol company, is it, do you see there's any worth or any value? We talk about adding value to sheep, to the wool. Is it adding value, looking at branding more, looking at Welsh branding, that kind of thing? Do you think people will buy into that?
I think the issue with Welsh branding is you've got your 18 native breeds. So you've got that umbrella, but there's an awful lot of English and non-native breeds that are grown on Welsh soil. So when we were looking at the other projects up in North Wales, this came up as well, And I think there is definitely a hub that's required, and I would definitely follow up and look at the fibre shed model, because you would be able to have subdivisions under your fibre shed model that looked at Welsh breeds, traditional Welsh breeds, and also, you know, good quality fibre grown on Welsh soil, because fibre shed is all about location, whereas breeds is a different matter. It's complicated, isn't it, with breeds? So there's a huge scope, and certainly anyone in America and Europe, I mean, they absolutely adore British wool fibres. You know, we're you know, as the UK, we've still maintained the reputation of having excellent quality fleeces, and so varied. When you look at the Southern Hemisphere, the merino is almost like a clone of herself. They're almost identical. And you know, they're all whites, you know, and so when you look at what we've got with the Lustre breeds, so we have Teeswaters, blue-faced Leicesters, Wensleydales, and you know, we actually purposely seek out and request that farmers save their coloured rams, you know, their ram lambs when they're at birth. Don't castrate them, let's have them, let's have a look at them and see what genetic potential they can bring. So you know, there's lots of areas where if you become more specialist, and we must remember that wool is a niche market. At the moment, it's only 1% of the textile industry globally. So it's a niche product, and we're specializing in a niche product. So marketing would always be the best way of letting people know, you know, what potential you've got on, you know, under your sort of Welsh fibre shed umbrella, really.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
There's definitely a demand out there. Yeah.
So I think there was a question there from Paul. So is the wool insulation and bricks currently being manufactured here in the UK? If so, can I have their contact details, please?
Hi, Paul. Thanks for your question. The wool bricks, it was a collaboration between the a Scottish research centre and a company in Spain. I don't think they've passed the actual stage where they're actually being manufactured. So I can't say I've seen them on the market. Wool insulation has been around for a really, really long time, and I do believe that there is a company just restarting in Wales, which is just fantastic, because I think you used to have the Black Mountain company. So I can find that details for you. I haven't got the name of the new company, but I'm pretty sure there is somebody out there. If you want to find it, go onto Google search, look up Fferm fleece. They're the original company, I think. They've been making it for a really, really long time. And it will also give you all the people that are selling it, so you can work out your best price for your project if you've got a project in mind. What's really exciting, and I've only come across this recently, is so traditionally we've always been sort of selling via the British Wool Marketing Board. They've rebranded themselves as British Wool now, and are, you know, trying to sort of maintain their sort of connections with farmers, because there's 2 other wool buying companies available to us as a wool grower these days. One of them is known as Lawrence Pierce, and I believe that they also have connections with their own wool insulation company. So yeah, I don't know whether you'd be able to, I don't know if you're a wool producer yourself, Paul, but I don't know whether you could turn my wool into insulation. Funnily enough, that's how I started with wool, because we've used wool insulation in our barns in 2008.
Yeah, well, we manufacture, we're endeavouring to manufacture an eco-friendly floor tile and wall tile system using recycled waste stones and aggregate. So we are looking to combine the insulation values of Welsh wool in that product. So you can have a hard ceramic-like floor, which is insulated and warm to touch, and it's all to do with the Welsh wool layer and underneath, or wool layer, for want of a better term.
Yeah, amazing. I'd love some. Thank you.
Well,
We live in a
it's
very
nearly
cold
there.
house. Have you got a link? Could you put a link in the chat to your company?
I will. I'll put the website address in the chat, and then you can have a look. I mean, a lot of this, especially the bit we're talking about today, is an ongoing development. But we're sort of 90% there with the floor tile. It's just that the wool came about as a project on the side of it, and it's become very interesting because they do combine well. And seeing wool used in that way, because one of my questions is, I'm a bit like the girl at the start of your the student at the start of your slideshow. Yeah, they all stand in fields and eat grass all day, and I appreciate we do wear wool. But looking at the other side of it, it's a fabulous raw material, and obviously we don't need the top quality grade to do what we want to do. And
You'd be
when I see
better off with good strong wool too, because the wearability of wool is determined by the micron. So if you're buying a merino product, for example, that is below 18 microns, because 18 microns is said to be non-scratchy. As we know, wool felts because of the scales on the fibres. So below 18 is considered to be next to skin. Welsh wool can be 30 or more, and so many of the British breeds are, but that makes them incredibly strong for structure.
Yeah.
So they're ideal, absolutely ideal. Yeah,
That's
and they
right.
would create a really nice texture in there too.
Yeah, and strangely enough, I mean, having gone on this journey now with Maent and we've sort of gone down the route a bit. It's interesting because one of my questions is, I don't know enough about the product, but seeing your slideshow where you've got bricks and you've got it pushed into sort of terracotta as such, well, that almost lends itself to exactly what we're trying to do. It's another thin 10mm layer that will go underneath the tile that we've made. And because of the way we make it, and clearly the way those are made, they'll bond together beautifully. So I can see that product, apart from us making the molds and designing the molds to accept the two variations on material, I can see that working quite well now, really.
And I think with those bricks as well, they were mixing the, I think on another project, they were mixing the wool fibres with a clay, but they didn't need to be fired up. So if you're looking at it from a holistic point of view, there's no energy, because obviously we use a lot of fossil fuel to make bricks. So we need to start thinking as how can we all reduce our carbon footprint. So yeah, well, I hope it goes well. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I'll put it in the chat and maybe we'll talk again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to help. Yeah,
thanks a lot. Great, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Hi, Jan, nice to meet you. I'm Sioned. I work with both Alan and the other Sioned in Maent.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. I was just thinking, I think you mentioned at the beginning in terms of, maybe possibly the lack of knowledge that young people have in terms of sheep and their purpose and wool and so forth. Do you think that there's more that we could do perhaps through the Made with Wool project, but specifically maybe in Wales, in terms of, showcasing or increasing that knowledge amongst young people about the history of wool and sheep in general and the fibre? I don't know specifically how much is being done to date.
My son, when he was 5, when I first started to add value to wool, he said, "Mum, wool is so old-fashioned. Why are you doing that?" And he's right, but he's not right in that, he sees it as old-fashioned. That's what old people do, Mum, So I think we have got to change that. And my biggest thing at the moment is I do internships here with textile students, and so I've done about 4 of them now, and the first thing they say to us is said, "We don't know any of this. All our tutors, all they talk about is synthetic, and all they get talked to about wool is merino that's imported." So I've been to various different discussions in London and, you know, in various different other countries. And if you're not careful, students, all they ever hear is the word merino. They don't even say the word wool because wool is old fashioned. So somehow we've got to break that cycle. And so my thing at the moment is getting in there with textile students, and they are creating all their own, you know, their final collection using wool that they have. So the girls come here, they actually shear the sheep themselves, they grade the wool, they wash the wool, they card it, spin it, knit it or weave it and make finished garments right from, you know, the sheep to right to the you know, the catwalk, if you like, when they're finishing their textile degrees. I'm really enjoying stirring people up in that world, because I think we need to get to the tutors. I think that's a massive problem. And the same when my two teenagers are doing materials and design, they're both teenagers doing A-levels and GCSE. Nobody mentions wool when they're looking at fabrics. So, you know, people that can make felts, or, you know, the bricks and all of these products, I think that's where the message needs to come from, and that it's abundance on every continent. It's just so close to humans everywhere. So there is no real carbon footprint with shipping it around the world. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, no, thank you. That's interesting. Yeah, I was really interested in what was it, the Bristol cloth? Was that the name of the project? Yeah. In terms of your collaboration with the textile students. So yeah, maybe we could look at, we'll look at it further. Maybe we could have some further discussions around that. That would be good.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the wool school. I'm running another wool school in February, which is 4 days of where we convert fleece right from shearing, you know, all the way right through into a knitted, woven or felted garment. But it's sort of an introduction to all those processes. So, you know, we've got quite a lot of interest in that, and I fundraise so that I can get students here for free, so that I can offer them 4 days of free tuition. Yeah, it's good fun.
Oh, brilliant.
It's really good. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Sorry, I'm aware that there's a few more comments on chat as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add something. I did type it in the chat. Hi, Jen. I'm Mandy. I'm the chair of the International Felt Makers Association. And I just wanted to flag up to you that your farm has been mentioned. We've just had published the British wool for felt making, because we wanted to raise the awareness of British wool, and there's nothing been actually produced for felt makers. And Liz Clay's project that she did with you on your mention as a supplier in the book. So I thought you'd like to see that. And we're
fabulous.
Trying to make people aware that, but also that there's so many varieties of wool, and that they look, I mean, it's a lovely Lincoln long wool at the front there. They all look very, very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key as well. So whether you're looking for something to make a pair of socks or a carpet or a brick or something, I mean, they use keratin for skin grafts and bone grafts, because what we have got keratin here. And if you try and put something plastic in a human body, quite often we just reject it, rightly so. But if you can do a skin graft and a bone graft with something that's made of keratin, you know, our bodies go, okay, that's fine, you know, and it helps people heal. So it is in every industry. And I think that's the exciting bit that we need to get across to the younger generation, to say wool isn't old fashioned. You know, I call it the ancient fibre of the future. I just need more time.
Well, I was just going to say there was one more comment from Mae in the saying 100%. I think education across the whole of society is key. The senior manager in my company thought the sheep would die for us to have wool installation.
Yes, yeah, we do get that. You know, that's part of the reason we do an open day where we actually show the sheep shearing process. We've had some vegans here, and, you know, we've had people that have come trying to do all sorts, but actually, you know, they go away with a different opinion, and that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. As I say, we've got nothing to hide, and only to gain by welcoming people onto the farm to see what really happens. So, and I do post pictures of sheep upside down because they've got too much wool on them and stuck in brambles for days if you can't find them, because when we do conservation grazing and it's like 80 acres of scrub, you can't possibly check all your sheep on that land all the time. And what we also need to remind people is that wool is partially man-made. So when you look at the unimproved breeds like the soy, we've got them bouncing up and down on Cheddar Gorge. Their wool is about an inch long. That means she's not going to get stuck in brambles. We have designed sheep to look like your Leicester long wool on your felt magazine there, because we wanted that wool to spin it and to make hard wearing cloth. So it's not the sheep's fault that she looks like that. It's us that have designed her to be like that. And so we have to take that wool off at a period that suits her, not so much us. So we need to remind people of that as well, that it's a huge welfare issue. I mean, can you imagine having that all over you? I mean, it's hard having long hair, isn't it? Having all of that all over your body when you live in a field. It's tough on them, so we need to be raising the awareness of good welfare practices as well. Yeah.
You mentioned a TED talk on holistic farming. I missed the name of who it was.
Okay, yeah, ail-sefydlu. So he is the founder of the Savory Institute, which is a global movement that are retraining everybody all over the world in regenerative practices. And he designed this decision-making framework, which, to be fair, when I'm having a really bad day and I don't know which way to turn, I can look at this framework and I just feel at ease, because it just breaks down the almost like a complex decision-making process becomes easy, because you can break down the components of where you're trying to get to. And you can see this farm is quite complex. It's almost like a wicked problem. If anyone knows what I mean by a wicked problem, it's really difficult to solve some days. And so I would recommend everybody, thinking about holistic management, because you don't need to be a landowner to benefit from it. And we want everyone to start thinking holistically with everything that they do, where they buy their food, how they dispose of their rubbish, everything is all connected to the future of this planet, because we are just polluters, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? No?
Sorry, just maybe one final question. Just in terms of, obviously, you mentioned that you've travelled and visited 10 or so other countries in terms of your work with wool. Where is Wales, or possibly the UK, in comparison with the other countries that you've travelled and visited in terms of adding value to wool?
So if you go to all the southern hemispheres, if you go to Australia and South Africa and South America as an example, they tend to have lots and lots of merinos, as I say, that are pretty much identical to each other. It's like clones of one very particular set of genetics. They get 90% of their income from wool. They're not edible sheep. They don't have any flesh. They just grow wool. New Zealand and somewhere like Patagonia, that have got masses of grass in front of them because of the topography. So if you think about deserts, you see a lot of sheep, don't you, in Australia, and I wonder what they eat. If you see that in South Africa and, right down in the bottom of Chile and places like that, there's not a lot of grass. Sheep, to be able to grow meat and wool together, have to have grass in front of them all the time. So however much you feed your sheep, stronger wool is thicker wool, and so if you want really fine wool, it helps that they've got very little grass in front of them, if that makes sense. So when you look at what the UK is able to do, we are on a par with New Zealand and somewhere, you know, like the sort of the more mountainous regions of Patagonia that can grow grass. We're able to do meat and wool from one animal because of the genetics and the grass that's in front of them. So, you know, when it comes to an income generating enterprise, you know, sheep really are quite handy, because if you're growing wool, wool is a free, you know, cash crop that you can maximize, because you don't have to sell it through the wool board or through any of these other companies. If you want, you can add value to yourself if you're willing to put the skills and the time into that. So I think it's all in the mindset. But you know, I mean, we're so lucky. We are a grass growing region, and we have ruminants, and ruminants are able to give us meat and fibre, leather as well. So yeah, we have to sort of think very carefully about, you know, what we are saying if we are complaining that the price of wool isn't good enough, because, you know, how much effort are we putting into it?
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's where we think, you know, there's a whole new area in front of many farmers if they're interested. If they're not, it's fine. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you, Jen.
Right, well, thanks, Jen, for your time. If you could share your slides with us, that would be great. And maybe how to look into the wool school. We could always share that as well on our platforms.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I've sent over the slides this morning.
Okay, yeah, just wanted,
and then I'll send an email with links to the Fibre Quest if anybody wants to come along and see what we're up to. Perhaps even help us fundraise for it if anyone's interested. You know, maybe the Ffermwyr Association would really like to have a stand here as well. We'd love to welcome you. So yeah, I could pop that in an email, and then hopefully that will come out to you later on today.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
In terms of the Fibre Quest as well, obviously we can distribute that to the cluster. I think, Sianed and Ellen, there's nothing stopping us maybe contributing towards travel costs or accommodation for members of the cluster, should they wish to attend the Fibre Quest in March.
Yeah.
For those of you who are here, then that's something that we could help with if you're interested.
If you're interested, we're hoping to get some more people on a panel discussing, you know, maybe similar to what we've been just doing here. You know, where is the future of wool? How can we redesign what people think about wool? Because I think if you change the thought process that it isn't a byproduct from the sheep meat industry, it's a raw ingredient to nearly every industry. I can't think where it's not in any industry, to be honest. So, you know, if you've got any speakers or you'd like to sort of promote what you're doing, you know, we'd love to, you know, showcase, you know, what's happening in your region too. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I've just noticed there's another comment in the chat from Meibion, Ellen.
Yes, so yes, from Mae, is there potentially an incentive for farmers to use wool from the annual crop against carbon offsetting? It may be suddenly giving farmers interest in improving their wool, such as in the comments.
Yeah, so wool is carbon. You know, it is, sheep are already converting carbon from the atmosphere through the soil into you know, into a fibre, because wool is carbon. So, you know, every time you see the sheep, you should think, wow, that is carbon. And the only way they can get carbon is from ingesting it through photosynthesizing plants. And the only way photosynthesis happens is if there's plenty of carbon to feed those plants. So that's what holistic management has taught us, is that if we can increase the energy flow, the photosynthetic cycle, you know, actually, you know, we're helping the carbon sequestering, because you know, carbon is mobile. Yes, you can store it in the ground, but you know, the sheep is part of that process and always has been. You know, it's as they say, it's not the cow, it's the how, isn't it? You know, and that goes to the sheep as well. So, yeah. Yeah,
That
I
also
do
was-
think though we should look at that, because that's a, you know, we've been following quite a lot of people where, you know, farmers are being paid to offset, you know, a company that's not quite so, you know, carbon kind, if you like. You know, maybe we do need to draw attention to sheep farmers, and you know, the fact that, you know, wool is carbon and it runs around the field. You know, maybe we should. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
I think this is potentially something that we will be looking at through the Made with Wool project, because it has come up more than once in various discussions. So yeah,
Okay.
how we go about doing that is up, you know, still up for discussion, but it is on the radar, as we say.
Good. Yeah, brilliant. Well done. Yeah. Well, I hope things progress really well with all your next meetings, and you know, your sort of your groups and things. And yeah, if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here. And yeah, I'd love to welcome you here in March.
Oh,
Thank you.
great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.